Welcome to the Vegas Insider YouTube channel and to the Vegas Insider Twitter feed. We have our very first opening line report with the great Patrick Everson. We're looking at week one of the NFL season. You'll usually see us on Sunday nights after Sunday Night Football. So we'll be your very first look at the lines for the following week. But we're getting together here on a Tuesday night ahead of week one with Thursday Night Football only 2 nights away. And I'll welcome in our guy, Patrick Everson. Patrick, how excited are you to have a new home to talk about this stuff live for the people?
Oh, this is great. This is fantastic. I'm definitely excited about this. And to your point, this is going to be something that we normally do together each Sunday night, literally just a few hours after the opening lines go up for the following week's games. And as the Sunday night game ends, which hopefully gives us a little more input too, based on how the teams in Sunday Night Football look, which in this week is going to be pretty important because you've got the Buccaneers and the Cowboys. But yes, this will normally be a Sunday night show, give you a first look, an early look at opening lines, any early movement, maybe, some discussion with John Murray of the Superbook at Westgate about if they're seeing anything move the opening lines, if they've got any sharp play coming in early, his expectation for the week in a handful of the main game, like the key games, on all the key games, all the primetime games, and probably 3 or 4 other key matchups. And then we'll just kind of run through the rest of the games. Not every game can be an awesome game that deserves a whole lot of attention, but we'll try to spin you through at least a little piece of every game and really dive in a little bit more on, maybe half a dozen or so games where we get some really good insights from John Murray of the Superbook, who's gracious enough for many seasons now to be a source of mine every Sunday night with the opening lines and some of his early thoughts and comments on the early action.
Well, let's waste no time here. Thursday Night Football. We have the Super Bowl favorites taking on the defending Super Bowl champions in Los Angeles. The Bills are road favorites, -2.5 in LA. The over-under is set at 52.5. Those numbers via the Vegas Insider odds page, the consensus odds from Vegas Insider. Patrick, what can you tell us at the moment about opening night here in the NFL?
Well, another thing we should let people know is the reason this is Tuesday. Look, the opening lines have been up, as we all know, on these games for months, in some cases since April, I believe. But most books at least were up in May and certainly by June with all of these numbers. And that is obviously the case with the very first game of the season. Great first game. You get the defending Super Bowl champion against the team that is the consensus favorite right now to win the Super Bowl this year. So obviously a great matchup. And what's interesting about it is the Rams actually opened as a short home favorite at the Superbook. John Murray was one of the first people I talked about this game a couple of weeks back, just to kind of get the view of what's gone on these last couple of months. And he said, look, we put the Rams up at -1, but that did not last for long. He said it flipped pretty quickly. He felt like it made sense. He said Buffalo was probably the highest power rated team in the league at the end of last season. And he said, SoFi Stadium is going to be flooded with members of Bills Mafia. He said it's Super Bowl or bust for Buffalo this season. And this was, more than a week ago. He said, we're going to need the Rams in this game. Got an update from BetMGM over the holiday weekend here. And it's pretty hefty to the Bills as well there on the spread and on the money line. They like the Bills on the money line as well. And this is from Scott Shelton at BetMGM Nevada. But he did note at BetMGM Nevada there was a low 6-figure play on Buffalo -2.5, really getting the worst of the number there, Tom, for putting down that much cash. If it had gotten in earlier, could have gotten, pick -1, -1.5. It's all the way to -2.5 for that. But look, the Bills are just really the flavor of the month, the flavor of the summer, the flavor of the year right now, not just for week one, but in division futures, in conference futures, in win totals. And of course, as I alluded to already, Super Bowl futures. They're just a popular team. So like John Murray said of the Superbook, they were a very highly power rated team late last season. We saw a phenomenal game against the Chiefs in the playoffs that, you got to think if Josh Allen had gotten the ball first there, that maybe the Bills win, and who knows what happens then in a Bills-Bengals matchup for the AFC Championship. So popular play, and it looks like the books are going to need the home dog Super Bowl champion in the regular season opener.
So it's one of those sexy matchups where if either team wins, I think you still feel good coming out of that game if you're a fan of either team, right? Like flip a coin. Both of these teams are going to be in the mix late. And like you mentioned with the Bills, the Bengals barely won every single one of their playoff games, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say Josh Allen gets the coin to flip the right way in Kansas City. The Bills, maybe they take care of business against Cincinnati, and maybe they're the ones hoisting the Lombardi Trophy against the Rams. It's almost like we got robbed of a possible Super Bowl matchup this past season, and now we're getting to actually see that matchup happen here in Los Angeles on opening night. So I'm so fired up for this matchup here. And I think I'm going to have some action on the Bills just to have a little juice. You know, why not? I got Josh Allen as my fantasy quarterback, so let's roll that way. Yeah, so you know, we'll have good juju on my side here. All right, let's talk about the Sunday nighter. We got Tom Brady, my guy, in Dallas as the favorite. 2.5-point favorites taking on the Cowboys. The over-under that game set at 51. Those odds coming to us from the VegasInsider.com odds page, the Vegas Insider consensus odds. Patrick, what can you tell us about Tom Brady headed into Jera World for week 1?
Well, it's interesting because you had at the Superbook, this game opened 1.5 and was kind of stuck there for quite a while. And John Murray said one thing they were paying very close attention to, the risk room at the Superbook, was Tom Brady's situation during the offseason here, during the preseason, where he took a significant chunk of preseason off for personal reasons. And what John said was nobody's quite sure what to make of Brady's offseason and what is going on with him heading into the regular season. But he says, we know for sure his offensive line has been decimated by preseason injuries. Dallas lost standout offensive tackle Tryon Smith in the preseason. But he fully expects they're going to need the Cowboys in what should be the most heavily bet game of week 1. And more so, it's interesting, since you skipped ahead all the way to the Sunday night game, if Thursday night goes well for Buffalo and Sunday goes well for the favorites that people are more likely to back, the Ravens, particularly the Chiefs, we'll get to them in a few minutes, and then the Bucs on Sunday night, that's going to be a great outcome for bettors. That's going to make for a great NFL week 1 for bettors, and not necessarily a good outcome for the books, because all these, the parlays and teasers and such money line parlays, depending on the numbers, are going to be tied to the Chiefs, the Bucs, the Bills, the Ravens, one or two, the Packers, one or two others. So this Sunday night game could have a whole lot of liability rolling into it if favorites have a good Thursday night and a good Sunday in NFL week 1. Tell me I didn't lose you there. Why am I not hearing you?
I'm sorry.
My man, there we go. There. You're there. I was like,
technical difficulties here on StreamYard in the week 1 edition of the opening line report. I was just saying, look, we root for the bettors here at Vegas Insider. We want you guys to crush the books here. So if you're watching books, sorry, we're rooting for the bettors. We always are. I will be having a little juice here on the Buccaneers at -2.5 because I got to stick with my guy, Tom Brady. That's my guy. I don't care if he had a weird offseason. He's going to come in and he's going to ball out. That's what he does. He's a business guy. He hits the field. It's all business, Patrick.
Right. No, I don't disagree. And this, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this move that's sitting at 2.5 now, that's been a move over the last couple of days, because I just checked in with BetMGM Nevada with Scott Shelton over the weekend, and it was they'd opened 2.5 a couple of months back, bottomed out at -1 about mid-August, 2/3 of the way through August, been stable at 1.5, for most of the last couple of weeks. And now we're looking at, as you said, we're looking across the line here at this game on the VegasInsider.com NFL odds page, and it's just 2.5 across the board. So this is on the way up, and other people may be thinking the same way you're thinking, Tom. And what Scott Shelton had to say about this is, it's a pretty good two-way game so far. A few more dollars on the Bucs, but he's just talking straight bets on the point spread. Like I said, the parlays and money line parlays, it's going to be, the Buccaneers are going to draw their share of that. And if there's stuff rolling into Sunday night, it's probably more likely going to be rolling into Tampa Bay.
And you have to imagine the Tyron Smith injury, like you mentioned, had something to do with Tampa Bay crawling up there a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more as a
Absolutely
favorite
complain
against
to it.
Dallas.
Always keep an eye on that injury report.
Absolutely. So let's talk Monday Night Football. We're hitting all the primetime spots here first. Your Broncos roll into Seattle. Russell Wilson, homecoming early in his Broncos tenure. Get it out of the way, right? They're
Yeah, I guess
6.5 point favorites in Seattle over the Seahawks with an over-under at 44 at the moment. Those are the Vegas Insider consensus odds on the Vegas Insider odds page for the NFL. Patrick, I know you're going to stay away from this, right? You don't like to bet on the Broncos. It's
No, I
it gets
do
too
not.
hairy for you. So what are the books saying about this one? That feels like a really big number for Denver.
It's a big number and it's a big move. The Superbook opened this -3.5. And again, reminder, these numbers have been out for months. So they've had a long time to be bet into, but the Broncos were up to 6.5, a couple of weeks ago. So they're kind of stable there at this point. But as John said, it's moved a lot. He said the sharp players figure to be on the dog here, coming in late, getting that better number. But he said there's going to be a great deal of parlay accumulation to the Broncos too. If there's stuff that runs from Sunday into Monday, that's going to be running into Denver. And he said he expects the public to be all over Russell Wilson as he visits his old team, to your point, right out of the gate. The schedule makers set this one up nice. He said Seattle will likely be the biggest need of the week for most sports books, given the schedule spot and the line. And then some follow-up with BetMGM just over the weekend here, over this long holiday weekend. Scott Shelton, BetMGM Nevada, he said, this is going to be one of the biggest public plays of all time in week one. Because of where that number now is, 6.5, he said it'll be the biggest teased game, no question. And he said just not even counting teasers, just straight bets on the spread, tickets and money. It's just an avalanche on the Broncos at this point, relatively speaking. Let's keep people mindful. Yes, there's been a lot of time to bet on these games, but it's still a relatively small pot. Where the money really rolls in is on Sunday for the Sunday games and approaching kickoff for the Monday games. But if it goes anything like it's gone, if this is indicative, the small pot, but the lopsided play towards Denver, if that's indicative, then it's going to be a pretty big pot for Denver going into the Monday night game. And again, that the need for the books, the need/liability for the books will only grow if you get a situation where Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, Bucks, and other popular favorites win on Thursday and Sunday. A lot of that activity in parlays and moneyline parlays and such is going to roll into Denver. And again, to Scott's point, this will be probably a pretty heavily teased game with Denver at 6.5 now.
So we hit all the prime times. Let's hit some of the other big games here in week one, because we have some really fun matchups. And
you bet.
Let's start with the Patriots in Miami. Not because I enjoy pain, but I just feel like it's important for people to get the information here. I am not confident in the Patriots at all heading into this season. And it seems like the public is kind of with me here, Patrick.
Well, the public and probably, honestly, sharps too. There's a sharp bettor I spoke with over the last couple of weeks, just kind of picking his brain on. He's very much intrigued by the NFL and golf, which is great because I like betting golf and I love watching and betting the NFL. So he indicated that the Patriots are one of his biggest fade against this year. He thinks the Patriots are due for a very rough season. And he said, one of the main reasons for that is he thinks the Josh McDaniels loss at offensive coordinator is going to be significant for New England to overcome. He thinks that's going to be a tough situation in New England to overcome the loss of their longtime offensive coordinator. And to that end, this number is up a little bit. Dolphins, I believe we're looking at -3 right now on that game. I believe
we're looking at 3.5.
3.5 now. See, I mean, I've heard again from a couple of sharp bettors, and then I heard just earlier today. I was just texting back and forth again with John Murray at the Superbook, executive director here at the Superbook in Las Vegas, and we were just talking about something totally different. But I knew we were going to be having this discussion tonight, so I said, "Hey, what's the most interesting thing you're seeing about NFL Week 1?" And he's like, "Everybody likes the Dolphins, and nobody likes the Patriots." So it's interesting that is the case, and John said the Dolphins are a very trendy team coming into the season. New head coach, new superstar receiver. They got Tyreek Hill from the Chiefs. He doesn't think it'll necessarily be a big decision, but he does think it's one of the more interesting games. And then in some follow-up with Scott Shelton at BetMGM Nevada, this really kind of tells the tale, and it speaks to John's point a little bit earlier, John Murray's earlier point a little bit earlier that I mentioned about the Superbook not seeing much activity. Scott Shelton over the long weekend here said at BetMGM Nevada, there's almost zero money on the Patriots point spread here in Nevada. No one's playing the Patriots right now. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case nationally, but it's a microcosm of what's going on and kind of lines up with what Scott Shelton, or rather with what John Murray at Superbook told me later, as in earlier today. That information from Scott was over the weekend. And also what I heard from a sharp bettor I've been tapping into for some insights and betting nuggets over the last couple of weeks. He just doesn't feel, and in fact, he said his best play this week is Miami -2.5. Now, obviously the -2.5 is gone, and it looks like the -3 is gone now too. Maybe the 3 comes back. Maybe that 3.5, 3 in the hook will be some incentive, but his best play, he said, was Miami 2.5.
So I don't like Miami to hit their over on total wins. I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl contender, but I do feel confident that they are the better team heading into week 1 against the Patriots. And the Josh McDaniels thing that you mentioned off the top is huge because Mac Jones progressed throughout the season with Josh McDaniels. And all of the reports coming out of Foxborough were how important Josh McDaniels was to Mac Jones' success. And now you have an offseason where it's almost like Mac Jones is teaching the offense to both Joe Judge and Matt Patricia. No one knows who's calling the plays. No one really knows what's going on. You lose some talent in the offseason. You don't bring in a lot of good talent. It's really trending in the wrong direction here for the Patriots. And I know we all blindly just say in Belichick we trust, but at a certain point, you have to bring yourself to reality and look at what happened in the playoffs last year and say, we're not even that team anymore. So I am extremely pessimistic about this Patriots team.
Yeah, I'm not sure I bet this game. I certainly wouldn't take the Dolphins now at 3.5 when you could have had 2.5. But like I said, the indicators I'm getting from odds makers and from sharp bettors is that the Patriots are a go against this season. That's there's certainly a go against in week 1. Whether that sharp bettor's prognosis of, hey, go against this team all season long, I don't see anything out of them. Whether or not that comes to fruition, we'll see. But it certainly looks like a go against from odds makers and bettors perspective in week 1.
I'm also on that under 46.5 too. There's just no way the Patriots offense is going to do anything week 1. All right. Enough about the Pats. Let's talk about the Chiefs. They are 6-point favorites on the road in Arizona, and over under of 53.5. That feels like a big number for Kansas City in Arizona, who, not for nothing, was the best team in the NFL at a certain point last season, beating everybody, and they faded towards the end. So maybe there's some hangover. People remember what they saw at the end of last season, but Kyler Murray is usually pretty good to start the year. So I don't know. -6 feels big for Kansas City. Why is that?
Well, and here's the thing. The -6s just came up today, and it was a significant jump. So it's Monday evening Monday evening. Forget it was a 3-day weekend. Tuesday evening, as we're all here on this live stream for NFL week 1. And, this morning when everybody woke up, it was still Chiefs 4.5, depending on where you shopped. It's 6s across the board now, I believe. And that move came this morning here in Vegas, maybe early afternoon on the East Coast. And in some cases, it was literally like straight from 4 to 6, 4.5 to 6. And some of the speculation, I talked to one of the traders at WinBet. And again, to separate, WinBet and Win Las Vegas are 2 different things. So anytime as anybody who's watching and listening, as we go throughout the season, if I refer to WinBet, that is WinBet's sports betting operation in states other than Nevada. So Arizona and soon to be Massachusetts and other states. But one of the traders at WinBet said, look, the action today was likely from a professional syndicate causing the line to move. That was actually, I had that confirmed by the Superbook, said that the respected group came in on Kansas City, and it was probably more than just one book. I'm guessing they weighed in at multiple books. I would not be surprised at all if they weighed in at Circa. Circa is always one to say, hey, we'll take a bet and then we'll move a number. We're not going to move a number without a bet. And then I believe they're up to 6 as well. So some sharp action came in today, Tuesday, on Kansas City, drives that number off of 4.5 all the way up to 6. And again, it's 6 at most books now. And also keep in mind, you mentioned, the Cards, they did get out to a great start last season, straight up and against the spread. They were just, they were killing it for bettors who were taking them on the spread as well. But you've got the DeAndre Hopkins suspension, which is looming over this team. That's a player they're certainly going to miss. You had the arrest last month, a fellow wideout, Marquise Brown. He was for like reckless high speeding. I don't know what it was, 100 and some odd miles an hour or whatever. Just some other things that are kind of adding to the anti-Cardinal sentiment. And again, this trader at WinBet, John Manica, actually, I should have noted his name, but John Manica, a trader at WinBet, he noted there's been action on under for the Cards win total. And actually it's currently at 9, but it's heavily weighted to the, fairly heavily weighted to the under, minus 160 to the under. So you almost wonder if that keeps up. There's only a couple more days where this is going to keep up, because I think a lot of the win totals and all that stuff are going to come down once the season gets going. But does that get to, do they keep adjusting the juice? I don't think they probably don't want to go to 8.5, which is why that juice is at minus 160. But there's, I wouldn't say it's on the level of the Patriots, but it seems like there's some consensus growing against Arizona at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think Arizona is going to win the Super Bowl by any means.
I'm with you there.
Yeah, but I don't want to just throw them to the side and ignore what they did to start last season. They're clearly a team, because this has happened not just last season, last 2-3 seasons. You see this out of Arizona. They come out hot when they're healthy, and then they fade towards the end. So I'm not going to just blindly fade the Cardinals to start this season, even with DeAndre Hopkins out for 6 games.
Right. Understood.
Kyler Murray's too talented.
He's a difference maker, no question.
So let's talk about another team out west. 2 teams you're familiar with. The Las Vegas Raiders are at Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. Minus 3.5. Los Angeles Chargers at the moment are the favorites. The over-under is at 52, and the Vegas Insider consensus numbers there for you on the Vegas Insider odds page. So 2 AFC West foes for your Broncos. So all those teams going to be in the mix this season. This is how they start the year, with a divisional matchup. Patrick, what are the books telling you about this one?
Well, a couple of different things here. First off, again, from John Murray at the Superbook. And again, as you know, the line 3.5. He feels like he notes this is a matchup of 2 teams the public loves coming into the season. There is a lot of interest in the Chargers. And I would say even in the, not just in week 1, but also in some of the futures markets, particularly the Super Bowl. I know a while back, I believe the Superbook took a decent 5-figure play, might have even been a 6-figure play, but I think it was a 5-figure play at 14-1, and that helped them reel the Chargers into 10-1 at the Superbook to win the Super Bowl, which puts them, not far, in that kind of pack with the Chiefs and the Packers and the defending Super Bowl champion Rams and so forth. But he said, again, 2 teams the public loves. He says he expects the over to be a really popular public spot in this game. He said both teams have tons of firepower on offense. Raiders and Rams, and there's a lot of talk about Raiders and Chargers. Rather, there's a lot of talk about the Chargers, QB, Justin Herbert, maybe an MVP candidate, that sort of thing. A lot of those things tie into it. More recently, over the weekend, and talking about this with Scott Shelton, again, Scott with BetMGM Nevada, and this is in multiple markets as well, but certainly for this game, if you're a sportsbook operating in Nevada, the Raiders are starting to become more and more that public team, with some of the talent they've acquired and the expectations that have come with the talent that the Raiders have acquired. And Scott said, as far as this game goes on the spread, it's all Raiders, 2-1 tickets and just over 3-1 money. Again, remind you, it's a limited pot. A lot more money is going to come in on this game on Sunday. The bulk of it's going to come in on Sunday, but early indicators, they're playing the Raiders. He said they're playing the Raiders money line plus 150. The betting splits are much more skewed on the money line in favor of the Raiders. And he said, basically, we're going to need the Raiders if this trend continues, and he thinks it might. Obviously, it'll depend on how the Raiders perform. But if the Raiders perform to the trend, He said, we're going to need the Raiders to go down every week because they are quickly becoming a popular bet here. A lot of regional bias. And this is something that's going to happen not just here in Las Vegas with the Raiders. It's already happening in other states. And as you get more and more states with legal regulated sports betting, you're going to see this, the potential for these regional biases to creep in, and how these games are being bet and how the numbers are moving and what the needs and liability are going to be for the books and so forth.
Yeah, and you have to imagine with Kansas going live this week, that probably had something to do with the Chiefs taking a jump. I know Kansas City's technically in Missouri, but it's right on the line there. And it's a right Kansas City, Kansas for those that get confused. It is confusing, but that may have contributed to the Chiefs line movement as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I know some people were even tweeting about with the state of Kansas going live with legal regulated sports betting. They live just across the Missouri River in Blue Springs or Independence or whatever, and they're jumping in their cars and they're driving across the border, get inside the geo fence so that they can get those games. So it's absolutely happening in the same way that back in 2018 when New Jersey was first on board, New York City people were driving to New Jersey and stopping in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. My buddy, good buddy of mine, Nick in New York City, he would drive, and there was like a Dunkin' Donuts, Wendy's parking lot. He would drive to it and make all his bets and then drive back home. And so I would imagine not to the volume of a New York City across the border to New Jersey, but I'm sure a not insignificant number of people who enjoy sports betting are making their way into the Kansas City, Kansas, and the Kansas side of Kansas City and getting down on this week's game. It's going to be a very popular game.
As someone that used to live in St. Louis and would drive over the Illinois border to place bets, I completely understand that. So let's hit some of the other sort of non-marquee games, but big matchups on Sunday. And then we'll kind of speed round, hit some of the lesser marquee games here as we wrap up the week 1 opening line report. Packers are a 1.5 point favorite in Minnesota. The over under for that one at 47. That coming from the Vegas Insider odds page, the Vegas Insider consensus odds there for you. I like the Vikings plus 1.5 here, and I like the over. I think this is going to be a shootout. I think the Vikings offense is going to be one of the best in the NFL this upcoming season with Mike Zimmer out of there. Tell me why the Vikings can't get this done, Patrick, and what are the books saying about Green Bay as a road favorite in Minnesota?
Well, what we've got right now on some of these secondary games, not the ones that are necessarily in the report that I've got up on VegasInsider.com, which, by the way, will update all the way through the weekend. We'll have updates on every game over the course of the next couple of days. And then, of course, throughout the day, Sunday, and leading up to the kickoff in Seattle for the Monday night game. That article will constantly update, and we'll get information from multiple sports books in that article to give people, different viewpoints, how these games are being bet at different books, and see if there's any similarities or differences that are worth noting. But with regard to this game, it's interesting. The Packers, I'm looking at DraftKings information right now, and this is literally pretty fresh from DraftKings. And right now on the spread, minus 1.5 Packers, ticket count 2-1, but money running a little bit closer, 55-45, money on the spread. So a two-way action on the money on this game for sure. And it's definitely an interesting spot for the Vikes, being at home against easily their arch rival, getting a 1.5. As far as the total, it's almost dead even money on over under 48. So the ticket count is skewed a little more to the over. I think that indicates, the public is always going to bet for scoring. So they're going to want to see points scored. 63% of tickets on the over, but only 52% of money on the over. So again, almost a dead even split on money for the total in that game.
So something I want to hit on quick. We don't need a full-on analysis because I don't think a ton of people are going to be crazy interested in this one, but I'm all over the Saints at minus 5.5 over the Falcons. I'm going to be blindly fading the Falcons all season long. I believe they are the worst team in the NFL. Their defense is horrible. I know Kyle Pitts is great. I know Marcus Mariota likes to throw to Kyle Pitts, but they're not going to win games with Marcus Mariota just throwing to a tight end. How we're not talking about Brady and Gronk here, Okay.
Right.
So I think the Saints, with that awesome defense, Tyrann Mathieu joining that unit this offseason, they have no qualms about going into Atlanta and laying down a hurt on the Falcons. The over-under at 42.5. I'm going to hammer the under there. I don't think the Falcons have any offense to speak of. So just a quick note on a game that I am all over for Sunday. Patrick, any thoughts there?
Well, and again, I think you're being supported by the early betting action on this game too, and certainly by the line movement, because the opening line 3.5, depending on where you shopped. And again, remind everybody, these numbers have been up for months, so they've had a long time to be bet into. But Saints -5.5, a wonky number, kind of a dead number there. But I can tell you at DK right now, they're support the bettors at DK, and I'm sure at other books, DraftKings, are supporting what you're saying. You've got a ticket count of 3-1 plus on the Saints on the spread, and point spread money 9-1 in favor of the Saints. 90% plus of all dollars that have come in on this game so far. And granted, it's probably not a whole lot, not only because it's not Sunday yet, but because it's not the most attractive matchup. But of what little pot there may be on this game, 91% of that money on the spread is on the Saints. And again, that line's come up 2 points from the 3.5 opener.
To your point about this line being up for months, I took this in like April. So
exactly.
I was sitting around at my apartment in Pawtucket at the time, and I was just itching for some NFL action.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking through the week 1 spreads, and I was like, you know what? Falcons are going to stink. And I went ahead and I bet on the Saints in April. So that's where we're at, people. I really need football.
Well, I hope you got better than 5.5 then.
I did.
I don't know how. I
sure
assume I assume you were much closer to that 3.5 than the 5.5. Well, good on you. And you mentioned the total.
Took advantage.
Actually, it's like 2-1 tickets, 3-1 money on the over. But I think the smarter play on this might be on the under, and maybe because of that, you wait and see if you maybe can get another half point or so, and then hit it closer to kickoff.
Exactly. So one other game I want to hit here before we bounce out. Something that Stephanie Smalls brought up today on Chasing That Paper that I thought was interesting. And you guys should check that out every day at 11 a.m. Eastern here on the Vegas Insider YouTube channel. If you missed the live broadcast, I mean, because Patrick, you're on the West Coast. You can't be waking up at 8 a.m. to watch it. You catch the replay right when the show's over. When you get up around 8:39, you have your cereal, your breakfast soup, as some people call it, and watch the Chasing the Paper when you're ready.
Exactly.
But she brought this up. I thought it was interesting. Jaguars are in Washington to take on the Commanders. Never going to get used to that. Hate that name. Commanders are at -3.5 as the favorite. The over-under at 44. And she mentioned the Carson Wentz, Doug Peterson thing, right? I mean, he knows everything about Carson Wentz. He knows that he kind of stinks. And the Jaguars, they're rejuvenated. They got the Urban Meyer stench out of there. They have year 2 of Trevor Lawrence. And Doug Peterson's won a Super Bowl, and he knows all of Carson Wentz's tricks. And it doesn't really even seem like you need that many tricks to beat the guy. So I think I'm going to go with the Jaguars here at +3.5. What can the books tell me that will lead me to thinking that this is going to be a smart play heading into Sunday?
Right. Well, right now at DraftKings, it's a two-way game on the point spread, two-way action on the point spread, but with a lean toward the road underdog Jaguars. 52% of bets, 55% of money on the spread, taking the Jaguars, currently +3. I'm going back to look and see what they, what that number opened at, because I'm curious about that to see if that's something that's, open 3.5. Looks like there's some 2.5s there actually. So, there is some 2.5s. There's a ton of 2.5s. So, all over the board now as I look at this on the VegasInsider.com odds board. So down a point. So clearly that's impacting what's going on here. That that people kind of like the Jags. I wonder if I refresh this page that I'm looking at, if this is going to say 2.5 now, because this might have just been a move that while you and I were just going back and forth on all these other teams on the show, that we had. This is a number that just changed over the course of this program tonight from 3 to 2.5. So, and the numbers have changed significantly now.
The Stephanie Smalls bump.
So now the ticket count on the spread, and this is a DraftKings. This isn't necessarily representative everywhere, but it's a microcosm of what's going on.
Of course.
Ticket count 50-50, but 69% of money on the Jaguars. So there's been a little bump there, and it's been reflected in the spread too, closing in another half a point. The Commanders, again, I can't get used to that either, but the Commanders down to -2.5. I can't get used to the Commanders. I say San Diego Chargers a lot because I'm an old AFC West guy. You know, so I struggle with that one too. But yeah, this has seen some movement in just the last little bit here in the time that you and I have had this debut NFL Week 1 opening line report program going tonight on Vegas Insider.
All right, we're not going to hit on any of these in a real way. I'm just going to run through some fire round lines as we sit here on Tuesday night. The 49ers are 7-point favorites in Chicago with the over-under at 41. You have the Browns on the road in Carolina, who are currently 1.5-point favorites. That over-under set at 41.5. The Browns opened as the favorites, and obviously some stuff happened in Cleveland to make that number move. The Steelers are in Cincinnati taking on the defending AFC champion Bengals. They are 6.5-point favorites with an over-under at 44.5. The Eagles, some of the hotter, sexier pick teams in the NFC at the moment, they are 4-point favorites on the road in Detroit, a team that people love heading into this season as well. Maybe not to win the Super Bowl or anything, but a lot of people on their over. The over-under for this one at 48.5. The Ravens are 7-point favorites in New York, taking on the Jets. That over-under at 44.5. The Colts, another sexy pick over in the AFC. That is a 7-point favorite for Indianapolis in Houston. The over-under there at 46. And the Giants on the road in Tennessee. The Titans are 6.5-point favorites. That's an interesting number. That's kind of heavy for Tennessee, who just lost their best pass rusher to a torn ACL, Harold Landry, and didn't really end the season all so hot. But they're 6.5-point favorites, hosting the G-Men in the over-under at 43.5. Of all those games I just mentioned, Patrick, what stands out to you, and do you have some insight into any of these that is worth sharing with the people?
I think the Cleveland Carolina game is interesting with Baker Mayfield's involvement, and as you pointed out, Panthers -1.5. This game opened quite some time ago at Browns -3.5, so obviously a significant shift. I think we're all aware of the Deshaun Watson situation and certainly how that plays into it. But at DraftKings right now at the moment, tickets 3-1, money 4-1 on the Carolina Panthers in that game. And there was another one you pointed out. I'm trying to remember which one it was that I thought was kind of interesting here. But so I'm going to scroll through these numbers here real quick and just see if I can refresh my memory. Oh, well, I mean, look, I think it's worth noting the Bengals because, look, they are the defending AFC champions. They had the ball with a chance to tie or win the Super Bowl. So, that's a worthy team, and really nobody's talking about them. And right now they are, as you pointed out, 6.5 against the Steelers. At DK right now, we're looking at 71% of early spread bets, 68% of early spread money coming in on the Bengals, while the Steelers, figure out who's going to be the quarterback of the future over I assume these next couple of weeks.
Sorry, I muted myself again. They just named Mitch Trubisky the captain, Patrick. That means that he's going to be the quarterback of the future, right? Everything's solved. Nothing to worry about.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure everybody believes this is the algebraic equation, and everybody believes they've now solved for X in Pittsburgh, right?
They named the captain. They're fine. No, I really want to see Kenny Pickett play this year. I mean, that's a cool story. It's kind of like James Conner a few years ago. You get the Pitt guy, goes across the hallway to the Steelers locker room, and hopefully he comes out and he plays well. I'm not a Steelers fan per se, but I root for stories. That would be cool.
Oh, sure. I think it'd be a great story. Absolutely. I got no issue with that at all. No issue at all.
Well, I think that's gonna about do it here for us, Patrick. Week 1 opening lines report in the book. You guys are going to see us every Sunday night after Sunday Night Football. We're putting in that hard work for you people so you can take advantage of these numbers as early as possible in the week. Patrick will give you his insights. He's getting all that stuff on the ground in Las Vegas, talking to all the power players, all the sports books, everything you need to know from this man right here, Patrick Everson, our guy at Vegas Insider. And you have me just hanging out to help this guy give you all the goods. So, Patrick, any closing thoughts here as we 2 more sleeps away from Thursday Night Football?
Well, I just think it's going to be a fascinating season, and I'm ready for it to get going. And to your point, obviously, I've got a little darkness setting in on the West Coast here now, so my light is I wasn't able to adjust my light over the course of this. I'll fix that for Sunday night. But again, to remind everybody, this is going to be really fresh starting Sunday night. This is going to be an opening line report every week, starting this Sunday night with week 2 opening numbers, which will have just come onto the just gone onto the board within hours, and we'll have some information on how some of the early action is going, maybe where some sharp play is at, and what John Murray, executive director of the Superbook, has to say about some of these games and the expectations for those games as the week goes forward. So we'll have some really good stuff right out of the gate. Hopefully it gets you informed right out of the gate and helps make your NFL week easier all season long.
And it's a great way to just get ready for week 2 while week 1's going on. It kind of keeps that adrenaline flowing, right? I get like a minor bit of depression at the end of Sunday Night Football every Sunday because
there's only one game left.
Right. My football nirvana every Sunday just ends. And I'm like, I have to wait for Monday Night Football, which the matchups are better this season on Monday Night Football, but they're typically not as good as you're going to see on that Sunday slate, right? So it's just, This is a good way to kind of keep it going, right? We don't even have to worry about Monday Night Football. It's right on to the next set of games. So
we'll talk about the best games coming up in the following week. Yeah, I was going to say, we'll talk about the best games coming up in the following week, maybe touch on a couple of others, but we'll hit all the highlights right out of the gate.
Exactly. It's going to be a ton of fun. So that's going to do it for us here tonight on the Vegas Insider YouTube channel, on the Vegas Insider Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at Vegas Insider. Subscribe over on YouTube, youtube.com/Vegas Insider TV. I'm Tommy FreezePops. That's Patrick Everson. Good luck with your bets.